Hey guys, how you doing? I'm Cupid's Prime, and in today's video we are going to be comparing one of the most popular podcast apps on iOS and Android called Pocket Cast. And we're going to be comparing it and see which one comes out on top with the most features. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so let's open up the app. And as soon as I start, I notice one thing on the Android one. On the top right, I see a Chromecast support, in which the iOS one does not support. But if we go into the three dots on the top right and look in there, we got a few options. They're both arranged differently from each other. It makes no sense that developers do this. So we tap on the Android one, on the batches, you get off, all unfinished, and only latest episode. If we tap the iOS version, there's one layout that's different, which is unfinished episodes on iOS versus all unfinished on Android, which is weird. Now if we switch layouts on both, you can tell they're both the same. Now let's tap the sort option. Now there's three options on iOS, but Android has one called drag and drop, which basically does is you can organize all your podcasts by drag and dropping them in different order, which the iOS one doesn't have. And the last option is share podcast option, which I don't use. It basically is you just highlight all your podcasts that you listen to and just share it with a friend through email address or Twitter, etc. Okay, now let's go on to the filters tab on the bottom. They both look similar, but iOS has an edit button on top, which lets you move filters around or even delete the filters you don't want, which Android is missing. Android does have a plus sign which lets you create custom filters, but iOS also has it on the bottom. Okay, look, now let's move on to the Discovery tab. You can see that they both look identical. Now let's scroll down and tap on Show All to see how they both look. As we scroll around, they both have the same UI elements, and I don't see any difference at all. Now let me scroll down a little bit, see if any other differences, but everything looks the same. Now, as we scroll down all the way to the bottom, you'll see it says browse by category. I don't see any difference on both iOS and Android. You got comedy, education, games and hobbies, music, etc. I don't see any difference. Even when you tap on the language, I don't see any language missing at all from iOS to Android. So everything is exactly the same. Okay, now let's go to the profile tab, which is the last tab of the app, and see what's in it. So the app just gives you information on your daily routines on the app, like skipping, how much time did you skip a podcast, variable speed. I usually put mine at 1.2x, so the voices could be a little faster. Downloads, how many podcasts you downloaded, listening history. My listening history is about 27 days in 8 hours. So it just gives you information on your daily routine that you use this app for. And I like that it tracks all your stuff you do with the app. One last thing is we're gonna go into the settings to see how different they look from each other. Right off the bat, I could tell right away that playback is missing on Android, and then general is missing on iOS. I just don't understand these developers why they can't make both have the same options. It could be an OS restriction or an API restriction. Who knows? Let's click on the notifications on both iOS and Android to see what options they both have. And right now, by looking at it, you can see that Android has two extra features that's missing on iOS. Now let's go into the appearance section. Both versions have the options to do light, dark, and extra dark. You can see there on the Android version, you had to tap on the themes to get it. Now extra dark is black and dark is like a gray tone, and then light is all white. On the left side on Android, you got all these options right there, and some of them are missing on iOS. And if you look on the left side on the iOS version, it says app icon. It lets you pick different icon designs for the app. And it's funny because you can't really do this on iOS. There's no icon packs or nothing. So the Android version doesn't have it because I could just pick my own icon packs in a Nova launcher or whatever launcher you want. Now let's go into storage and data use. You can tell that the iOS version is missing two features that the Android version has. Now let's jump into auto download. You can see in this picture that the circle options on both sides appear to be the same, but the two X's on the bottom are missing on iOS version. Android doesn't have Siri, thank God, but I'll let you just look at the options in there and give you a moment to look at it. You can see on the Siri option there's like plus signs to add features and stuff. I really didn't bother because I really don't care about Siri. I don't use it and I don't want to use it. And both versions have a feature called helping feedback, which is basically emailing them for support, etc. And then you got your import export OPML, which is pretty cool to transfer from one app to podcast to another app. I haven't used this feature yet, but it looks a little weird on iOS. I don't know how that works, but on Android basically is you save your file, you save all your podcasts that you're listening to, then you select the file and then you email it. Okay, we're gonna go back to the first setting because this is a lot to cover. Okay, on iOS it's playback and on Android it's general. I don't know why these developers keep doing this, changing it around. I don't know why, but it is what it is, right? So both versions have all the features. Some are missing from iOS, others are missing from Android. So I drew the line. When one line iOS meets Android is where both versions have the options. Now the two X's on iOS means that those two options are not available on Android and vice versa. Okay, so if we tap raw action, see what both have. Same thing. If we tap app up next swipe, same thing. And then Android has an extra option there, which is episode grouping. Okay, so I think that's it with all the options. Guys, thank you for watching this video. Hit the like button and tell me which is your favorite podcast app on iOS or Android, and give me a thumbs up, and you guys have a nice day. Bye bye.